Hello everybody, thank you for tuning in to another cooking video from the Pakora Explorer, or as I think most of you know me by now, Chantal. We are still in lockdown and I think we're in week 6 now of lockdown, so I'm doing these cooking videos in my flat at home by myself. So hopefully you'll bear with me in terms of the camera angles and that you'll be able to see everything. I'm doing my best to capture everything I can, but sometimes it's a bit difficult to do that one-handed when you're by yourself and trying to stir the pot at the same time. Today we're going to be using my Murghi Masala, which is my chicken masala. And of course, if you don't have this one at home and you are thinking that you'd like to try this recipe at home, please just head over to my website www.pakoraexplorer.co.uk, where you can obviously order your own set of spices directly delivered to your door. There are 5 spices in the set altogether, and we have a range of different recipes that you can do with them. So please head over to the website, check it out. We've also got the recipes uploaded there as well, just to give you some weekday and weekend inspiration. So today we're going to be making my quinoa and vegetable medley, as I've named it because I couldn't come up with anything more exciting than that. Now, I guess the first question is, are we calling it quinoa or are we calling it quinoa? Whatever you're calling it, we're gonna need it. So here I just have some good old Tesco quinoa that you're going to use, and I'm also going to be showing you a little technique as to how to really get a really nice nutty flavour coming through in that quinoa. And then in terms of the vegetable medley, what I love about this dish is the fact that you can really use any vegetables that you like, so it really can be your dinner the way you like it. And this also makes a really great lunchtime dish as well. So for today, for what I'm using, so I'm going to be putting in some chicken as well, which is obviously why we are using my chicken spice. Of course, if you are vegetarian, then feel free to swap for tofu or soya as well. I would recommend tofu over the soya, but of course it's worth experimenting just to see what you prefer. In terms of the vegetables, I am going to be using a few of these gorgeous baby aubergines. Just look at them, they're cute and they're just the colour and the flavour on these is really good. I'm also going to be using up some mushrooms and of course some lovely colourful, lovely colourful mixed peppers. And one of the great things about this is a little bit goes a long way, so I won't be using absolutely all of those aubergines or all of those peppers. The mushrooms obviously live by myself, so I'm only feeding one. And then of course I'm also going to be using some feta cheese as well just on top of that, and it just gives that little bit of sharpness right at the end and then in every mouthful that you get. In terms of herbs, actually I'm only just using a couple of them, so I'm going to actually be using some basil, which I have here, and mainly because it's been growing on my kitchen window and I want to use it up. And I'm also going to be using garlic. I mean, I love my garlic, and this will just give something a little bit extra to the vegetables. But you don't really need to use too much else because obviously everything you need is in the spice packet. And again, one of the great things about this is there's no chilli powder in any of the spice packets, so if you do decide that you want a little bit of a hit of flavour, then of course just feel free to add some chilli powder into it. And that's what makes this so versatile, is although it's inspired by, my parents' heritage, so very much a Pakistani background, this can flavour foods of all kinds, so it won't come out being just an Indian dish. It really is that versatile. So let's get cooking. So what we're going to do now is we're going to prep all of the ingredients that you need, so the chicken, the peppers, the aubergine, etc. And again, I'm hoping that everybody by now knows how they're going to prep their veg, so I don't think you really need me to tell you what I'm doing. But what I'll do is I'll run through it really quickly, and then obviously you'll be able to see it once it's all prepped. So what we're going to do is we're just going to dice the chicken. One of the things about my spice blends is you actually don't really need to marinate your food beforehand because they've got such an impact of flavour that you really just get a real hit of flavour as soon as you start to use them. However, anytime you do marinate food, it's always going to just help to increase that flavour and that intensity. So my recommendation to you is to cut your chicken first. Use your spice blend that you're going to be using, and then just let that sit just while you're prepping the other vegetable. An extra 5-10 minutes isn't going to hurt it, and it's just going to bring out that extra flavour. So as I said, so we've diced the chicken, and I'm going to add about a teaspoon of my chicken masala to this. So just about a teaspoon, which is about 5 grams altogether. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to be using the peppers, and I'm going to be putting them into tiny little squares as well, and then also for my aubergine I'm also going to cube them as well. And the last vegetable I have, I couldn't remember what I had there, but my mushrooms, again, I'm just going to quarter them up. So everything's going to be in kind of quarters, and you'll see why that we've done that once you see the finished dish. So let's get prepping. So now that we've got our veg all prepped, so we have our aubergine, we have our mushroom, and I've decided to use yellow and red pepper. Of course, you can use all three if you'd like, or you can just use one. Just go with whichever is your favourite. This dish would also work really, really well with cauliflower and courgette as well, even broccoli as well. So anything that gives it a nice crunch and a nice texture. Now what we're going to do is we're going to roast the vegetables. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop all of the vegetables into my bowl. Just one at a time there. And what I'm going to do is, I really love garlic, and I think garlic brings out a great flavour in food. So I'm actually just going to put 1 clove of garlic in, but I'm not going to chop it into tiny pieces. You can absolutely do that, but for me personally right now for this dish, I don't want big chunks of garlic, tiny chunks of garlic when I'm eating it. So I just want to have the flavour. So I'm just going to cut that up a little bit just to reduce, just to release some of the flavours. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add a bit of salt and pepper. I like quite a lot of pepper, as you've probably seen, and I just do a twist of salt. So I actually don't like too much salt in my food. It's just a personal preference. And what I'm also putting in here is just a little bit of a drizzling of sesame oil. I really like the nutty flavour that sesame oil gives to vegetables. And of course, if you prefer, you can use olive oil. You can use vegetable oil, sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, whichever you prefer. But of course, just remember that all of the different oils will give you a different flavour, and just the garlic and the sesame oil just gives it something else. So I'm just mixing away. Hopefully you can see that quite clearly in my very stylish pink bowl. Still just living the dream here with my lovely bowl set that we have. But here's what it looks like, and you can see how good that looks as a medley of vegetables. And again, could you imagine if I had put green pepper in there, or broccoli, and just any kind of green? That would just also look absolutely fantastic. So now what's left to do is we're going to pop it into the oven. So I'm going to put it onto my baking tray here. And yes, this is the biggest baking tray that I have because I don't have the need for a big one. So I'm just going to pop that into the baking tray, just shake it about, and we're going to bake this probably for about 15 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes. Obviously make sure your oven's nice and hot when it goes in. I'm baking it at 200 degrees. Anybody who's watched any of my other cooking videos knows that I just seem to cook everything at 200 degrees and it works. So I'm cooking it at 200 degrees for about 15 minutes, but of course I'll show you what it's like when it comes out and what kind of consistency we're looking for. So into the oven. So now we're going to get on to the point of doing our quinoa, whichever you're calling it. But we're now going to do our quinoa and also our chicken. So there's two things that I kind of want to pull out here before we're going to go into the process and I'll show you what we're doing. First of all, with the quinoa, one of the things I would recommend is that in a dry pan, so your pot that you're going to use, is get your pot quite warm, put your quinoa in, and just let it dry cook just for a little minute or two. And what that will do is it will start to bring out this kind of nutty flavour in quinoa versus just going straight in with your hot water or your stock. And that's the other thing that I wanted to pull out. So you can absolutely make quinoa with plain water. That's absolutely fine. But of course using stock will give you just another level of flavour. So I am going to be using a chicken stock in my quinoa because it just takes it to another level and it just brings out the really nice flavour in the quinoa. So put your quinoa into the pan, on a warm pan, let that cook for 1 or 2 minutes just to start to heat up and start through almost browning a little bit. Then when that's warm, you're going to add your stock in, and then you're just going to follow the instructions on the quinoa packet just to make sure it's cooked all the way through. Okay. So with our quinoa kicking away nicely, it's now time to start getting onto the chicken. Now with the chicken, what I really want to do is I'm going to get my pan really nice and hot, and I'm going to pop the chicken into there with only just a little bit of oil, and I'm really going to get a nice caramelised flavour onto the chicken because, you know, absolutely you can cook chicken in about 15 minutes or so, it'll be cooked right the way through, especially with the size of chunks that we did. But if you cook it a little bit longer and don't stir it or move it around the pan so much, you'll get some nice charred flavour onto your chicken and some nice almost burnt bits, caramelised flavour, and that again is just going to add to your dish as well. So get your frying pan. And like I say, just a little bit of oil, and just to keep that consistency through with the oil that I use in the vegetable, I'm going to be using a little bit of sesame oil. Get that nice and hot, pop your chicken into the pan. Try not to stir it too much, try to leave it, let it get that brown and that caramelised flavour, and then so let that cook for about 15 minutes or so. Of course, always checking that the chicken is cooked all the way through. So while we're just waiting for the quinoa to finish, I just want to kind of capture where we're at now. So the chicken has cooked really nicely, and you can see the kind of charred pieces there that is just going to give it that extra, really nice extra flavour, so that's really, really good. And then in terms of the vegetables, again, this is what our vegetable medley looks like now, so nice and cooked through. And one of the things that you might have noticed that I did when I was doing the quinoa is I actually just added a squeeze of lemon, and then I left a slice of lemon in the quinoa while it was cooking. Again, I quite like the nice citrus flavour, the tang, so it's absolutely fine to do, but if you're not so keen, then obviously you can just leave it out. And what's really great is because I've got a slice of lemon in there, I can just lift it straight out when I'm ready to serve. And I'm literally just waiting for about maybe another 2 or so minutes for the quinoa to be finished. And again, what you might have noticed in the video is I did have to add extra water, and that's absolutely fine to do, because there'd be nothing worse than putting too much water and your quinoa is soggy and you're trying to cook it off for a long time. So always add more as you go. Now in terms of consistency, hopefully you can see here, quite thick. You know, there's no liquid coming out, which is quite good. So that's what you want, is you want that liquid just to drain off. Now you don't want to dry out the quinoa. Again, you do want it quite moist and flavoursome, so make sure you don't dry it off too much, but obviously make sure it's not soggy. So it really is that fine line. But one thing I would say is when you're cooking, make it to your taste. If that's the way you like it, then you have it the way you like it. Okay, so it'll probably be about another 2 or so minutes for the quinoa to be finished, and then we can dish up and actually enjoy our dinner. Now, when it comes to dishing up, there's a couple of ways that you can serve this dish, and again, it comes straight down to preference. One thing that I am going to do, however, is I'm going to pop my fresh basil straight into the quinoa and just give it a stir. I've turned that off the heat now, because don't forget that even when you have turned your quinoa off, it's still obviously cooking because it's hot on the pan, so just remember it'll still be absorbing any liquid that's left over, so just be careful to not let it dry out. So I put the basil straight into the quinoa. Now you can obviously leave everything separate, so you can have your quinoa on the side, your vegetables and your chicken, that's absolutely fine to do. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put my vegetables in the quinoa and just keep my chicken separate. So I'm going to take my vegetables, and I'm just going to get that all in there. Nice. Just pop that in the sink. And then I'm just going to mix it up. So again, what you can hopefully see is starting to really look colourful. The green of the basil is coming through beautifully, and the yellow pepper, the red pepper and the aubergines, they just smell so sweet. It's a really lovely flavour. I really do like those baby aubergines. And so now what we have is we have our quinoa mixed with our vegetables, lovely and colourful, and I've got my chicken ready, and so we're going to plate up now. So here we have it, my quinoa and vegetable medley served with chicken, which was seasoned with my Murghi Masala, my chicken spice blend, topped with basil and feta cheese. And I've just added here a wee bit of lemon because I love my citrus flavour. Here we go, everybody. Enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed our mealtime inspiration, and as I've said, if you would like to purchase any of the spice blends, please just head over to my website www.pakoraexplorer.co.uk, where you can purchase them for yourself, or why not purchase them for a friend or for a gift for somebody and get everybody cooking. Remember, we love a great foodie pic, so if you try this recipe or any of the other recipes that we have, please take a picture and post it on our Facebook or our Instagram page. We'd love to see what you get up to and what you create. But for now, thank you so much for watching the Pakora Explorer cooking at home. Have a great evening. Bye!